After episode 8, the finale of Arknights Paris and Frost, my mind is going a million different directions. First and foremost, I have to admit, kind of mad about this finale. I feel like half of this episode shouldn't have been here. I feel like half of this episode of episode 8 should not have actually been in a finale. There's just way too many things they're trying to open up right last minute. There's a side of me that wants to say information dump, but that's a very overused term that to the point where it's diluted. But it's kind of one of those cases where they're presenting way too much stuff. They're divulging way too much information and piling it on top of you while you're feeling like this should be wrapping up. Like, let's close it. Like, at some point, I'm like, is this a 2-episode length episode? Because it feels like they're doing too much, and I don't think they're going to answer any of this. And they didn't. They just revealed way too much stuff right at the last minute, and then just done. Now, yes, I argue how technically these arcs work. It's kind of building into the next arc. Technically, Preluded On opened up a lot of doors at the end of its 8-episode airing. And yes, we get into that stuff with this particular one. It's just there's a side of me that's like, do we have to get into all this stuff? Do we really need to reveal all this stuff right now? Because I'm assuming we're going to get another season. It seems like this is doing well enough, and it seems like there's a lot of passion behind it. It seems like it's something they want to do. And I would hope that by next fall, we'll get another season. But I can't help but feel, why this much stuff? Why spend half the episode getting into stuff that we're not even going to see an answer to for at least a year? Aside from that, a really amazing episode. I mean, there's two parts to this, really. There's the downfall of FrostNova, and then everything around, essentially Shen / Amiya / Wei, all that kind of stuff, all bundled into one. So let's start off with FrostNova. Essentially, Amiya's team following after FrostNova. FrostNova tells her team, look, get Mephisto and get out of here. Whatever remaining people we have, get them out of here. But yes, Amiya eventually arrives there. Now, true to the promise that they made, FrostNova said, basically, if you defeat me, I will join you. But it doesn't seem like that's what FrostNova actually wants to do. FrostNova obviously wants to see her people get out of there. She wants to see the reunion, her men get out alive. Now, granted, she's pretty much lost all the Yetis, but she at least wants her comrades, Mephisto and all them, to get out alive. But honestly, whenever something like this occurs, whenever there's a story that I'm enjoying, and there is a pinnacle character in an arc that does seek out death, I want to sort of get an answer to it. Why does FrostNova seek death? There does seem to be a lot of emphasis on regrets, the dumb decisions that she made, and again, that's a lot to do with her and Talala. She followed Talala and regrets doing that. She even hates Talala for what Talala did. Yes, technically getting into what she feels like Talala once was, which she admits Amiya is similar. Amiya looks just like Talala once did, but she's convinced that Amiya will follow a different path. And I think that's what ultimately, in the end, makes her decide that she wants to join the Rhodes Island, is because Amiya is legit who Talala once was, and Talala did have her follow her. She wanted to. But then, unfortunately, Talala turned into something else. So it does seem like there's an emphasis here that FrostNova was seeking death because she regrets what she did. She regrets following Talala. She regrets all the blood that she spilled. And I think that is amplified when you have somebody like FrostNova, who made that regretful decision, coming across somebody who is essentially going down the path that she originally hoped for. Amiya is basically salt on wounds for FrostNova. I made this stupid decision back here by following the wrong person, and now you're the one I wanted to follow, and it's too late now. I've bloodied my hands. I can't necessarily follow you anymore. But there is also seemingly an emphasis on the idea that FrostNova herself is in so much pain because I'm guessing this is a later stage of what they go through with the infection. This whole thing where it's breaking out and you see these gems floating around her is obvious that she's in the later stages of the infection, and apparently because of that, she'd be going through a lot of pain, and she's suppressing it. So there seems to be an idea that what she's also seeking is just to be put out of her misery, seeking a release from her pain, and yes, technically, the final kind of option here is that she wants to rejoin her brothers. Her brothers that, when she was unconscious, basically sent her away, got her out of there. She wants to return to them. They gave up her life for her, to get her out, and now she wants to return to them. So there's a lot of little kind of ideas I can possibly get for why FrostNova chooses death. Because that's honestly, I think there's a lot of writers that kind of do this just for the sake of a punch. Oh man, they actually killed off a character. I don't feel like the writer behind Arknights is that cheap. Just do it for the sake of a death. I think there's got to be some sort of reasoning behind it, and that's what I'm kind of seeking for. And that's kind of what I come to a conclusion on. It's regrets, it's rejoining her friends, it's a release, and yes, it's the struggles with this disastrous choice that she once made. But yeah, the fight itself was incredible. Really great action, which I honestly have always kind of slightly criticized this series for, as its animation for its combat sequences are very limited. But I always give it credit in the idea that even though it doesn't have crazy animation, it always has incredible directing. And yes, this point right here, great directing and great animation to kind of come together. It was interesting at some point in the fight, we almost had Amiya take off one of the rings. She almost released it, which does imply that Amiya knows about it. I wasn't sure that Amiya actually knew about the rings. Yes, she wears them. I would assume that she was told to not take them off because, yeah, you can say, hey, wear these, but then she'll take them off at some point. But yeah, eventually it comes to the point where FrostNova says, you know, if you can survive one more attack, I'll join you, which again, I don't think she ever intended to. Yeah, she goes crazy. Everybody fights back. Eventually, FrostNova pretty much gives in to the disease. It doesn't seem like it implied that she got attacked. It did show some projectiles near her, but it seemed like it was more of the fact that she gave in. Even Blaze later on says the idea that she probably would have killed us if it weren't for the fact that she succumbed to it. Which, yes, everybody goes to leave, and Doctor stays behind to take her back, and really emotional segment. And again, kind of gets into a lot of the stuff that I've already kind of covered, this idea of her feeling that regret, the addition of her seeing Talala in Amiya, but Amiya obviously possibly going to be following a different direction. But additionally, and what really gut punched me was eventually saying, "Can I call you Doctor?" I can call you that now. I'm a part of the team now, right? Tell Amiya that I'm at your side and I'm walking with you. There's so much meaning in this phrase that it's not even funny. Again, this goes to what I was concluding with FrostNova in regards to Amiya, and the idea that she sees that Amiya is exactly what she wanted Talala to be. And I think with the aspect of her massive regrets that she has because she followed Talala into a dark path and claimed so many lives, it's almost as if she now sees Amiya is the true path. And I think in this last moment, it's FrostNova wanting to find comfort in essentially choosing the right path. Even though I will pass away, at least I will be a part of Rhodes Island. When she's passing away, she literally becomes a part of Rhodes Island, and Rhodes Island will in the future be the one that can possibly save the world, save these lands, whereas Talala was destroying it. And I think that's the whole desire that she has there. Even though she's going to die, she wants to be, for a brief moment, be a part of Rhodes Island, that she feels at this moment will be the one that can save this area, can save everybody. And it's just, again, an absolute gut punch. And then, yes, saying that she's going to go off to her brothers. It was super, super heart-wrenching. And then to have that whole scene where, yeah, later on, Doctor is walking back to Rhodes Island, carrying FrostNova. The guys are like, "Stop, what are you doing?" "I have a fallen comrade." And I was like, no, gosh. Again, amidst of everything else was happening that I'm constantly trying to figure out what all these people are talking about. What's happening over here? What's Wei doing? What's Blaze doing? What's Amiya doing? What's Kalsit doing? In the midst of all that, you have Doctor walk forward and say, "We've lost one of our own." I was like, oh gosh, it hurt. It hurt. This entire episode was very interesting in regards to Doctor. And again, I constantly don't give Doctor enough credit, and that's mainly because I admit, first impressions, when I did the first impressions of the first season, my initial impression was Doctor was the self-insert. Doctor's going to have nothing going for them. But there's so much in this episode about the Doctor. Kalsit kind of hinting again that she knows the Doctor from the past, and how the Doctor of the past never even afforded her any trust, so she'll never trust him, that she doesn't want to see that face anymore. You know, I'm going to do my own thing. It has nothing to do with you. It seems like there was a lot to do with the Doctor having some sort of relationship with Kalsit in what they used to do. And there was probably an issue with trust that was there. And then now to have the Doctor have no memories, and Kalsit still has memories and still doing her own thing, she probably doesn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. Or at least could possibly just doesn't want to get him involved again because he might get harmed. There could be an aspect that Kalsit doesn't want Doctor to get involved with whatever she's doing because in the past it hurt him in some way. And so she doesn't want to do that again. So even though it kind of implies this idea of Kalsit not liking Doctor, I think there's probably something there of trying to just keep him away. Keep him at arm's length because she doesn't want to get him hurt. But yeah, the stuff around Greythroat and Blaze seems to be an extension of what they had before. Obviously, Greythroat having a struggle with understanding the pains of the infected, getting a little sense of this bond being created between Blaze and Greythroat, was I think was fantastic, because for the most of this arc, you had like 2 episodes where it did seem like there was a a conflict between the two of them. Obviously, Blaze understanding eventually, why Greythroat was having struggles with communicating that. But here, kind of just solidifying it in Greythroat's mind, look, the key point here is not so much as why is the infected in pain, or trying to have empathy for the infected, but really understanding that everybody is the same, which Amiya kind of echoes that in front of Wei, but is that idea of we're all the same, which I think is, from Amiya's perspective, was really put into great words, and the idea that we're all the same. Everybody here is the same. We're all technically human. We all have struggles. We all have pains, but we're all equal in a sense. And additionally, kind of emphasizing the idea that Rhodes Island isn't out to protect the infected. Rhodes Island is out to protect people. And people like Wei, and people that are using and abusing everybody, people like Talala, they're all choosing a side, whereas Amiya is kind of emphasizing Rhodes Island is about us. Because as she puts it, which I think is so beautiful, once the Rignium is cured, once that infection is gone, if we don't understand that now, once the infection's gone, nothing will change. Conflict will continue. Because it will always be a us versus them. That's essentially what she's trying to push on the Wei. It's an us versus them mentality that Tala, Wei, all these other people have that is not going to go away with the loss of this infection. It's a really, really beautiful. There was actually 2 scenes in this episode that defined Amiya as a character for me. Once when she was in front of FrostNova, and she basically told her Rhodes Island does not fight for one person. We all fight according to our own beliefs. The infected don't need anyone to lead them. What she's essentially saying is that everybody in Rhodes Island, I'm not their leader. They're not following me in my own beliefs. They're all fighting for their own reasons. That's why it shows Greythroat who's doing it because, again, she's following the lineage of her family. It shows Blaze and that she wants to protect other people. It's showing each one of them in their own purpose for being a part of Rhodes Island that is not Amiya's beliefs. It's everybody seeking something to relieve a pain or to protect others. It's a really beautiful scene. And yes, technically, like I mentioned earlier, the whole scene with Amiya and her berating Wei, like, look, we have to break our agreement off. We can't do this anymore. Oh, it's mutually beneficial. No. I was okay with the fact that you were using us. Amiya already admitted that, I think at the beginning of the season or at the end of the last season. She already admitted that she knew that that Wei was using them. Lungmin was using them. It's fine. What she didn't like was the fact that Lungmin and Wei were using everybody. Infected, citizens, LGD, all of them. He was using them all and keeping them away from the truth that was ultimately affecting them. Basically treating them as chess pawns and not really necessarily revealing the whole truth and putting them in danger at the same time. Again, 2 really fantastic scenes from Amiya. Really, really great episode for her. Which, yeah, I guess we should get into that whole scene. I think this is probably the more difficult scene to have. I mean, additionally, having Shen going down into the sewers, running into Swire trying to tell her, look, you're doing an incredible job. Like, despite the fact that Swire always has a tsundere attitude of wanting to take over Shen's job, right here she's like, look, you do an incredible job. You make these great calls. You are a great leader, which is why you shouldn't see this. You should just keep doing what you're doing because this is the underbelly of Lungmin. If you see this, it's going to change everything. You're not going to be able to look back. Sure enough, she goes down there. It looks like some sort of crystallization. I'm assuming they have like a massive like Arignium down there or something like that, which I don't know why they would have Arignium down there, but that's my assumption is what's down there. And so she immediately goes back to Wei and says, hey, the hell. Specifically, she says, you were behind it all. There was no way that Lin would have given that order. She apparently at this point, I guess either remembers or recalls a memory of her past because of this whole thing happening, or now it's like it finally snaps. Like, yeah, I kind of knew this, but now it all makes sense. I'm not sure exactly what kind of triggers it, but yes, she remembers she had this memory that Talala's parents pretty much were killed. Her mom and Talala's father were both killed by Wei and the Black Cloaks. So tying in Wei with the Black Cloaks themselves, which is probably how he got in the position he was. It seems like the Black Cloaks are sort of the secret agents of this in the entire Lungmin. And so it would make sense that if he was a part of this really powerful secret group, yeah, he probably took out his competition. It insinuated the idea that both Wei and Keshe were at odds with each other for the next leadership. So it would not be too far of a stretch that Wei had him killed in order to take control. Or it could be that he had to take down Keshe because what he was doing with Talala. And again, I do kind of acknowledge the idea that that's probably why Talala wants to take down Lungmen, is because Talala's father was killed by this power struggle within Lungmen, and now she wants to get revenge. So that all makes sense. The question mark is it simply just for power? Or did Wei see some sort of threat in Cache and want to take him down? But yeah, I would love to find out where that whole conversation is going to go. But again, we keep piling on more things because now Katsit walks in, and Katsit's like, hey, yeah, by the way, Chernobog's core city is coming off towards us. There's a signal coming from this. The city itself is constantly broadcasting identification codes saying it's claiming to be a city of Ursus. Huh? I know what Ursus is. Ursus is the big, the big government. But it's like, so wait, Lungmen, there's a identification code coming from there that's broadcasting that it is Ursus, and Chernobog, which broke off, is coming to collide against it. Why? So again, these are all these massive question marks they're creating right now, and I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Yes, I can assume that Talala probably made that part of Chernobog come, crash into Lungmen just to create devastation. But why is the city itself broadcasting as part of Ursus? Unless this is indication that the inspectors that came there are trying to signal that this place is owned by Ursus, like they're taking over. But I would assume I think they were Jan. I would assume that Jan wasn't a part of that. It's just a lot of question marks that they were creating right now. And by the way, for commenters, I'm not looking for answers. I will eventually get to it if the story continues, or I eventually decide to get into the actual game and read the story in the game. I'm just expressing the frustrations with an anime only, just a viewer of the anime, and seeing so many questions being created before the series ends for a foreseeable future. If you wanted my opinion, yes, I would probably have the whole situation with Amiya and team taking down FrostNova, her leaving, have Doctor with FrostNova, taking her back to Rhodes Island, and end it there. That would be the best ending, because it would be an emotional climax. At the very end, Doctor says, this is one of our own, and then cut to, cast scroll, see you next season. That's more of a conclusive point, rather than jumping over to Shin, her seeing what I'm assuming is the Arignium, her going to Wei, Amiya cutting off the contract, Katsit coming in, and we're just talking about this, part of Chernobog that's coming over to, slam into it, and all these other question marks that we're creating right at the last minute. But still, it as a story beat, not taking into consideration that there's no episode next week, this is stuff I eat up. I love all this stuff. I'm questioning so much stuff, and I'm curious as to where it goes next. I guess the only other thing that I haven't really mentioned yet was, that brief moment where we got Blaze and Greythroat were talking. I got the later part of it, but yes, they technically did talk about the idea of Doctor and how they trust them. Blaze saying specifically that seeing the look in the Doctor's eyes felt like she can trust him, which is counter to what Kautsit said, and seeing those same eyes and saying, no, don't look at me like that. I don't want to trust you. I cannot trust you anymore. It is interesting to kind of have that, kind of piggyback off that, because yes, it kind of insinuates this idea of what it does seem like Kautsit is instilling upon him, is that you need to focus on gaining the trust of the people of Rhodes Island. That's who you should focus on. Don't worry about me. Don't even pay attention to me. Don't even get into my business. I'm never going to trust you, but you should focus on this. Like, this is important that you should do. And it does at least show that that's part of the thing that he's gaining through Blaze. Blaze says, yes, in that moment, I trusted him, and I charged in the battle. And yeah, I probably could have died. I would have died if FrostNova didn't give in eventually, but I still did that because I trusted the Doctor. Which is technically a bad thing, because you're saying that you trust the Doctor, that you're going to be able to take down this situation, and then you charge in there knowing that you're going to die. But I guess it's more of the idea that you could probably say that maybe the Doctor knew that she would give in. Anyways, that was a long recording, but that was a lot in this episode. Like I said, way too much stuff, and so much that is going to take a while to probably get answered. Hopefully we get another season next year. I would love a continuous fall Arknights at least, but really fantastic series. Absolutely loved it. As usual, I am a massive fan of this animated series, even if I can't stomach to play the game, not because it's a bad game. It's an incredible game. Just I don't have the time. It takes too much time. It is a very, very time-consuming game to play. But really, really enjoy it. But I cannot wait for more. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's animated, pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, you like this content, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate it, but it does. And y'all take care.